In Washington, senators want NATO to fund American arms for Ukraine. In Kyiv, Russian strikes kill civilians, including a young child. Inside Ukraine's military, a spy leaks F-16 locations to Moscow. The war is escalating, on every front and from within. In Washington, two senior Republican senators have proposed a new mechanism to sustain military support for Ukraine, this time with Europe footing more of the bill. Senators Roger Wicker and Jim Risch, who chair the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committees, introduced the Peace Act, a legislative plan that would allow NATO allies to fund US arms shipments to Kyiv. The plan follows President Donald Trump's recent call for NATO members to take greater responsibility for supporting Ukraine's defense. The Peace Act would establish a fund within the US Treasury, enabling allies such as the United Kingdom and Germany to contribute directly to the cost of replenishing US military stockpiles sent abroad. According to Wicker, this initiative offers the fastest route to arming Ukraine while reducing risks to US military readiness.
This is the fastest way to arm Ukraine as well as to minimize the strategic and military threat posed by Russia to the US and NATO.
Risch emphasized that the move also sends a clear message to Russia that obstruction of peace talks carries consequences.
Together, we will send a clear message to Putin that there are consequences for his refusal to negotiate in good faith.
The White House is said to be receptive to the proposal, which may be folded into the annual defense policy legislation later this year. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he had approved key principles for large-scale arms agreements with the United States and expressed hope for their implementation.
Today, I also approved the key principles of our agreements with the United States regarding the Ukraine-US agreements on arms. These are large-scale agreements. I spoke about them with President Trump, and I very much hope we will be able to implement all of it. This will definitely strengthen both our countries and, by extension, our allies and partners. We highly value America's principled actions in pressuring Russia for the sake of peace. It is precisely now that action is needed to force Russia toward peace. Yes, Moscow wants to keep fighting, but the whole issue lies in potential, in resources for the war, in money. That is why sanctions are useful. That is why pressure can work. We are also preparing new conversations and new meetings with our partners at different levels. The goal is one, to strengthen the position of Ukraine and all those who seek peace.
Ukraine's domestic security agency has detained a senior Air Force officer on charges of espionage, accusing him of leaking sensitive military information to Russia. The officer, identified as a major and flight instructor, allegedly provided Russian military intelligence with the coordinates of airfields housing key fighter jets, including American-made F-16, French Mirage 2000s, and Soviet-era Su-24 bombers. According to a statement from the Security Service of Ukraine, the officer not only disclosed the location of the aircraft, but also passed along detailed operational data, including flight schedules and takeoff orders. The agency added that he suggested specific tactics for Russian airstrikes aimed at these high-value targets. The SBU noted that airfields hosting Western-supplied aircraft have been among Russia's top priorities. In addition to targeting the aircraft, the suspect is also accused of providing information about Ukrainian Air Force personnel and combat tactics. Such intelligence is believed to have contributed to recent Russian strikes on military bases, part of Moscow's broader campaign to disrupt Ukraine's defense infrastructure amid its ongoing invasion. The arrest comes amid broader concerns over espionage targeting Ukraine's defense programs. Earlier this month, the SBU detained 2 Chinese nationals suspected of gathering information related to Ukraine's Neptune anti-ship missile system, a key component of the country's domestic weapons development. The agency emphasized that counterintelligence operations remain active as the country works to protect its military capabilities and strategic assets under persistent external threats. Meanwhile, local authorities said on July 31st that a Russian overnight assault on Kyiv killed at least 6 people and injured 52 others. Among the dead was a 6-year-old boy. Mayor Vitaly Klitschko confirmed 9 children were injured.
There are 9 children among the injured. This is the highest number of injured children during a single night in Kyiv since the start of the full-scale invasion.
The attacks targeted at least 27 locations across the capital, including residential buildings and an educational facility. President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia launched over 300 drones and 8 missiles during the strikes. Ukraine also launched drone strikes inside Russia, hitting infrastructure in the Penza and Volgograd regions. Andriy Kovalenko, head of Ukraine's Center for Countering Disinformation, said a key radio factory in Penza, responsible for military communication systems, was among the targets. Russian officials confirmed damage and temporary internet restrictions.
A massive drone attack on transportation and energy facilities in the Volgograd Oblast has been repelled. To remove drone debris found on the railway tracks near Tinguta station in the Svetloyarsky district, train traffic has been temporarily restricted.
The Kyiv Independent Vertical Bar, July 31st, 2025. The coordinated strikes reflect an intensifying phase of the conflict, with both sides expanding the battlefield beyond frontline territory and into strategic infrastructure.